Today, we're digging into a real giant of the airline industry. You know the one, a company that so many people just love to hate, but one that, you can't deny, consistently dominates the skies and the stock market. We are talking about the economics of Ryanair. And that really brings us to the central question, the big paradox of this whole story, right? I mean, Ryanair has this reputation for, well, let's be honest, for terrible customer service, for all these crazy fees, for seats that barely even move. And yet, it's the largest airline group in Europe by the sheer number of people who fly with them. So how on earth do they pull that off? Let's dive in and figure it out.
Okay, so the story really starts with this relentless, almost fanatical obsession with cutting costs. And I mean, we're not just talking about saving a few bucks here and there. Their entire operation is this incredibly finely tuned machine, and it's designed for just one thing: to be the absolute cheapest airline to operate in the entire world.
So how do they do it? Well, it really comes down to three key pillars. First up, they only use one type of plane. That's it, just the Boeing 737. Think about it. That simplifies everything: your training, your spare parts, even scheduling your pilots. Second, they don't fly into the big, flashy main airports. They use smaller, secondary airports that are way cheaper and a lot less crowded. And third, they're masters of what's called high aircraft utilization, which is just a fancy way of saying a plane sitting on the ground is losing money. So they keep them in the air as much as humanly possible. And that last point about keeping planes in the air, this is where it gets really impressive. Ryanair has perfected the 25-minute turnaround. I mean, from the second the wheels hit the runway to the moment they're taking off again, just 25 minutes. It is an absolute masterclass in efficiency. Because, less time on the tarmac means more flights per day, which means more money from that one very, very expensive airplane. But look, that incredible cost cutting, that's only half the story. The real genius, the absolute secret sauce to Ryanair's insane profits, it's not about what they save, it's all about what they charge you for after you've already clicked buy on that ticket.
Yeah, the key term you need to know here is ancillary revenue. It sounds a little corporate, but all it means is money they make from things that aren't the ticket. So that checked bag, that's ancillary revenue. The priority boarding you paid for so you could get your carry-on and the overhead, that too. Picking your seat, buying a snack on the plane, it's all ancillary revenue. What Ryanair did was they mastered the art of unbundling the flight. And here's the really crucial part. That unbelievably cheap ticket you see advertised for, say, 10 euros, more often than not, it's what's called a loss leader. Just look at these numbers. A 10 euro ticket doesn't even begin to cover the 40 euros it costs for fuel and airport fees for your seat. So on the ticket alone, Ryanair just lost 30 euros by selling it to you.
But then, the magic happens. You, the average passenger, you spend a little extra. Let's say you spend 50 euros on a checked bag and to pick your seat. And just like that, poof, that 30 euro loss doesn't just disappear. It flips into a 20 euro profit for the airline. This is the engine of their entire business model. They sell the ticket at a loss, knowing they're going to make all their real profit on those high-margin extras.
And you gotta see just how huge this is. For a lot of the older, traditional airlines, pretty much all their money came from the ticket price. But for Ryanair, ancillary revenue, all those extras, consistently makes up about 40% of their total income. That's a fundamental change in how an airline even makes money. And it gives them this massive cushion if something like fuel prices suddenly goes way up. Okay, and this is where we get to the part that really feeds into that hated reputation. A huge piece of their strategy is basically monetizing your mistakes. Did you forget to check in online? Well, that's going to be a cool 50 euros to print your boarding pass at the airport. Is your bag a tiny bit too big for the sizer? Yep, that's another big fee. These rules, you have to understand, aren't just about being efficient. They are a very real, very calculated profit center. All right, so let's put the pieces together. We've got this super efficient, cost-cutting machine on one hand, and on the other, it makes its real money from all these fees. But what about that awful reputation? Well, this is the final and honestly the most counterintuitive piece of the whole puzzle. Ryanair has somehow managed to turn being hated into a powerful strategic advantage. Just think about it for a second. When you fly on a big, traditional airline, you have certain expectations, right? You expect some level of comfort, maybe a free drink or a snack. But when you book a Ryanair flight, your expectation is, well, it's on the floor. You expect to get from point A to point B, end of story. And by setting that bar so incredibly low, they basically make themselves immune to complaints. You can't really get mad because you knew exactly what you were signing up for. And there's more. Every single time their CEO says something outrageous, every time there's a news story about some crazy new fee they're thinking of adding, what does it do? It generates headlines. It's all free marketing. It doesn't matter if it's negative, all that constant buzz just hammers home their core identity. It makes sure that the moment you think, I just need the absolute cheapest flight I can find, the first name that pops into your head is Ryanair.
And at the end of the day, that's really it. The entire brand, all the controversy, the whole reputation, it all comes down to drilling one single message into your head: we are cheap. That's the message. We are, without a doubt, the cheapest way to get there. Everything else is just noise.
So let's start to wrap this whole thing up. What does this unbelievably successful and really controversial business model actually mean for you and me, for the people who are actually flying?
Well, the Ryanair formula is actually a pretty powerful mix when you break it down. You start with an operation that nobody can beat on cost, then you unbundle the ticket until it's literally just a seat on a plane. After that, you sell everything that used to be included back to the customer as an optional high-profit extra. And the final step, you use your hated brand to crush customer expectations down to zero.
But here's the final and maybe the most important point. This whole model doesn't just work because Ryanair is clever. It works because we, the customers, almost always choose the lowest price we see on the screen. It's just human nature. So, the next time you're booking a flight, the real question isn't just about Ryanair's business model. It's about our own choices. What are you actually willing to trade for that rock-bottom price?